I've been thinking, I've been thinking, and this video is about my thinking. And I look around me and I'm questioning everything. This is the nature of the mind of a philosopher. It's unavoidable. I can't stop. You could say that it's quite maddening. You could say that it is an endeavour to seek truth in a world where truth doesn't reside. But I'm not seeking truth, because I'm firm in my conviction that there is no truth per se, only subjective truth. You see, the thing is about philosophy, when a philosopher looks at something, from what vantage point is he or she looking? Now, if I look around this room and I start to consider the reality of this room, I consider the longevity of things around in this room. I consider my perspective on the things in this room. I can consider mathematical implication. I can consider the implication of language. I can consider many things when I'm looking around this room, when I'm observing the stuff. And the difficulty is, in this elusive notion called truth, is that you can only find truth if you want to believe in truth. If you don't believe in truth, and if you question truth, then you will never find it, because you're prepared to go to any length and breadth to challenge truth. And truth, in my estimation, is a comfort zone. It's the comfort zone of the ego. If we look at science, for instance, now what are scientists endeavouring to do? They're endeavouring to find truth. They're endeavouring to find a standardisation of this universe. And so far, they have discovered that the universe consists of molecules, it consists of atoms, and it fundamentally is a vibration. And there is a very high speculation that the vibration is conscious, i.e. string theory, where you have just the abyss, which is a potential. And these strings, which are apparently trillions of times smaller than an atom, they are string shaped like a rubber band, and they're just vibrating, vibrating, vibrating. And the thing is about these strings, apparently they have the ability to morph into the manifestation of this so-called reality. And so that intelligence is the intelligence which creates this simulation. And so when we look at it then from that perspective, if we want to follow our ego's desire, which is to find stability, the ego likes stability. It doesn't like instability. It doesn't like insecurity. It doesn't like feeling that there's no certainty. It doesn't like feeling that there's no dependability. And so what we do is we project everything then onto this world. We project our notion of dependability, and we like to think that things are dependable. But nothing's dependable, is it? I.e. is the love, the friendship that you have for your partner, or your partner has for you, is that entirely dependable? Subject to undependability, isn't it? Is your car dependable? Your phone, is it dependable? Is the aircraft you're flying in, going to holiday, dependable? Is anything dependable on this planet? Are our governments dependable? Can we depend even on language? Can we depend on our language to be able to express ourselves exactly how we feel? No, because if you express yourself to 10 people, they will all interpret your expression marginally differently. And so, is that dependable? No. Nothing is dependable. But the ego likes things to be dependable, and so that's what we do. And so, can you see how we create this illusion around us? When we go to get in our car, we don't tend to think that there's a high possibility that the car is not going to get me to my destination today. We don't think about that, because if we thought about that, then we'd be thinking, well, what is exactly the probability? Can I work out the probability? And then when you get into probability and possibility, then of course you get into the arena of mathematicians. And so you slip out of philosophy into math. And whilst you're considering the probability and possibility, then you are dealing entirely with numbers. What is the chance? You see, you're dealing with chance. And so if we start thinking along these lines, then that will consume us, that will consume everything we do. What's the chance of this kettle breaking whilst I'm trying to boil water for a cup of tea? What's the chance that I'll drop the kettle or I'll spill the boiling hot water on my hand? All these things are possible. They're even probable. And so if we start thinking about all these things, you can see it's kind of a maddening arena to be within. And often this can be the arena of the philosopher, because they're thinking predominantly outside the box. And when you are a philosopher and you're living in the matrix, when the general consensus within the matrix is that we have a belief system and we don't question too much, because if we question too much, then it all falls down, because we will discover that ultimately when we follow our beliefs and we put them to the test, then we will discover that they're only beliefs and they only gravitate to probability and possibility. And so there's a great deal of insecurity there. And so we don't like insecurity, so we come back from that. And so we start looking around and we project our dependability and our comfort onto this whole world. And then when things happen that put us outside our comfort zone, then we address that situation there and then without ever considering the possibility. And so, okay, this is a good way to maneuver through this environment, because it enables us then to concentrate on the end game. And so whilst we're concentrating on the end game, then we're not actually being present, because we're projecting our thoughts to the end game, you see. And so what are we doing in effect? We're living in the future, but the future is an illusion, and so we are actually living in an illusion, but we're denying the illusion because we want to hold fast to the matrix. And so you see all these paradoxes. Everything is just so paradoxical, it's unbelievable. And for me, because I am, for the better part, I'm outside of the matrix, because I don't have an involvement in it really. I don't have the insecurity of losing my job. I don't have the projection of achieving things in a certain arena in a job. And so there's a large portion of a life to be lived which I don't delve into. And so what I do is I watch people who have these lives, and I look at their lives and I question their lives, and I see how superfluous it is for the better part, and how they are living in an illusion, and at the same time they're denying the illusion. They're projecting a reality onto the illusion, and so it's all false. And whilst they are operating within this falseness, they too are false. Everything about them is false. All of the things that they consider to be real is false. It's illusory, and so it's self-kiddery. And so everybody going around their everyday business, they're just fooling themselves, and everybody is fooling each other. And so it's one big charade of people acting in a play, just acting, just pretending to be something, pretending that everything is real, and denying certain possibilities and probabilities. I have to keep saying the both, people, because they're quite different. And so for me now, outside of that, every day I just get up and I have my mind. And my mind, I'm in my daughter's flat now, and it's the second floor flat, and I look down onto a busy London street, and I see all the cars and buses and lorries and vans and cycles and motorbikes buzzing up and down, and I see people walking up and down with a certain urgency, and everything is it has an agitation to it, you see. This is the nature of a city. It has a certain agitation. It's like the notion of atoms. Some atoms vibrate faster than others. And so if you go into a small coastal town, then when people walk around, they look as if they don't have anything to do. No pressing engagements, because maybe they only have one or two things that they've really got to do, i.e. go to the shop and buy some groceries, and then go home and do some cooking, and then it's kind of like, oh, shall I have a walk along the promenade, shall I have a walk along the beach, and so there's no state of urgency, and so this is reflected in the vibration of that environment. And so now I assess this vibration, and my vibration is very, very calm. And so can you see that this vibration for me is a curious one, and I'm not in that vibration. And the vibration of this city is very apparent to me. And so of course then I get thinking in a different way about this, because I look at all these people and predominantly they're thinking in a certain way. They're thinking about where they're going to be in a certain time. Every single one of them out there, they're projecting their consciousness into the illusion of the future. They're not being present, they're not feeling themselves present, they're not questioning how they feel or anything about the world. They don't have an affinity with that, they're outside of that. They are just agitated atoms. And it's very curious, isn't it? And I look out there and I don't know what to do. There is nothing that I want to be involved with in that buzzing. The only things that I want to do, my daughter, she said to me, she said, so what do you want to do whilst you're here, Dad? And I said, I want to go and walk in Hyde Park. I want to go and walk in Battersea Park. Well, isn't there anything else that you want to do? Like a theatre or this, that and the other? And I'm like, not really. Because when I go to the cinema and I watch a film, then I'm not absorbed in that film. I'm only an observer of that film. You see, the thing is about films, they endeavour to draw you in, don't they? They endeavour to manipulate your emotions, but I don't allow them to do that. And even if I wasn't aware of that consciously, then unconsciously I'm detached from it. That's just how I am these days, and for the better part. Of course I'm still human, But you see how the directors want to bring you in and push you out, and turn you upside down and inside out, and they endeavour to do this to give you an experience. And in some respects that's a good thing if you can get an emotional high from the movie that you're watching. But invariably, you see, what I notice about these films is that their endeavour isn't to give you a feeling of well-being. It's an endeavour to shock you, to get you in a state of fear and high agitation. And it appears to me that there's a sinister undertow to the vast majority of films that are on the big screen these days. And as soon as I sit down and I'm in the presence of that, I go, I know what you're doing. Why are you doing this? Why do you want to subdue everybody within this cinema and lower their vibration and send them back out into the world with a lower vibration? Why is it that you want to do that? Why don't you take the opportunity to build everybody's vibration up and send them out into the streets very vibrant? You see what's going on? And so when you start thinking along those lines, you start then to consider what else is sinister about this world, and the machinations and manipulations of it all. And then you get into a dark arena. And so you can say to yourself, well, do I want to persist in this dark arena? Do I want to dwell in the land of David Icke? Do I want to dwell in the land of the conspiracy? These things are all happening. It's all there. You can partake in it if you want to, but it will be a detriment to you because it will keep you in a low vibration. So then when you know this is going on, you have a decision, and my decision is this: I don't want anything to do with that, because I know what they're doing. I know the movies are just propaganda, and I know everything around me here is a visual stimulation and a variety of propaganda. And so I'm walking around and I'm indifferent to it. I'm not, even though I can see, you see, if I look at a billboard with an advertisement on it and I look at the psychology behind, then I can see it, and it's plain as day, how they're appealing to our insecurities and our fears, and how they're trying to increase our state of projected pleasure. If we purchase a certain something, then we're going to be in a higher state of pleasure, and so what they do is, from certain handles, they try to increase our pleasure, which is a false state of pleasure, by conditioning our mind, telling us that we're going to feel much better when we purchase a certain something, which is completely erroneous, isn't it? And then they manipulate us to make us feel fearful about not having a certain something, and when we have a certain something, then we will feel more secure. You see, if we've got a stronger car, if we are eating something which they tell us is better for us, and any number of things. And so the mind goes round and round and round and round and round. And so what I do then, when my daughter says, what do I want to do? I say I want to walk in the parks. Because when I walk in the parks, it's the only thing that has a reality. A semblance of a reality. Excuse me. A semblance of a reality. The nature, and the wildlife. And the thing is about this variety of reality, it isn't trying to sell you. Nothing. It just is. And so what we do from this isness, we take of it what we will. And if we don't care for it too much, then we take very, very little from it. If we do care for it, then we take a great deal. And so you see that on the face of it, it is giving you an option. And I said in one of the recent videos that the option is for you to derive joy and pleasure from it. And so if you start to be at one with it, then you'll start to feel comfortable at it, and when you within it, and then when you feel comfortable, then of course your whole disposition is calm, and the fear subsides and the pleasure increases. And so this is the nature of nature. And so you can see the difference of these worlds when you step from one into the other. And so, speaking about philosophy, I mean, what is philosophy really? Most people, they don't like philosophy. They find it tedious because it doesn't lead anywhere. Exactly, because what it does is it brings about this certain reality. You see, I'm talking about a reality and a non-reality. Well, the reality is there's no reality. And so, but you see, we have to speak about something, don't we? We have to, at certain times, play as if something has a reality to it. Otherwise, if, for instance, let me just give you this scenario. There was a philosopher called Bishop Berkeley, and one of his famous lines was, if a tree falls in a forest when there's nobody there to hear it, does it make a sound? And, you know, of course, then from a matrixial perspective, everyone's going to say, well, of course it does, just that no one's there to hear it. But a philosopher would say, well, exactly, if there's no one there to hear it, then is there a sound? You know, because if the human ear isn't there, or an animal here that can receive the vibration and interpret it, is it making a sound, you see? Because if there are no ears around to hear, then when a tree falls, there is only a vibration. There isn't a noise, people. There is only a vibration which then gets interpreted via our ears and our brains. And it's like light. It's like all these things around me now and around you. It is only by the presence of light that you can see anything at all, because the photons from the light are bouncing off everything, and they're hitting your retina and blah blah blah. We've all had this, and then these electrical impulses are sent to the back of your mind where the visual cortex is, and so then we think that we're seeing something, but it's only by the virtue of our eyes. It's only by the virtue of the light. And so if we don't have any eyes and if there's no light, then is there anything there? And then, you know, it comes down to interpretation. Everything comes down to interpretation, doesn't it? And then if you say, well, if a blind man then is in this room, well, the blind man can determine that there's something here because he can feel. Okay, yes, he can feel a certain something due to the different levels of vibration, because that's all it is. Solid things have a greater adhesion, and so they will feel solid, whereas things like water and air, then they don't have such a greater adhesion, do they? So it's all down to the ability of the certain atoms and vibration to have an adhesion. And if you look at the world from a scientific perspective, then you are looking at the world from the matrixial perspective, and you are bringing about a belief system. That is all that these people are doing. They are bringing about a belief system to give structure to this illusion, because without structure it all falls apart. And so this is the whole basis of language. You see, we create a language and then we project the words onto things, and then they become something. They make manifest in this reality. I'm going to do a few videos about this because it's really, really important, and I want you to try to grasp it. And so the scientists then, they're dealing with what they consider to be the reality. You know, they're dealing with the chemicals and the molecules and the atoms, and yet, you know, the same scientists in a different field, they're dealing with a non-reality. And yet, you know, even though there is a non-reality which their intelligence tells them time and time again all over the world, it doesn't matter how many times they do certain tests, it keeps coming back that there is no reality. And yet we find ourselves in a reality. And so we have to say to ourselves, well, okay, we're living in an illusion. It's a very good illusion. It's a very good non-reality. And if we want to philosophize about the non-reality, then we can play with words. And then people will say, well, where do those words take you? They only take you to an arena outside of the reality. They take you into a non-reality. They take you into a superfluous area. Does the tree make a sound when it falls in the forest if there's nobody there? Well, people will think, well, what on earth is that all that about? That's rubbish. It is rubbish from a person who is steeped in the matrixial way of thinking. But for a philosopher, then philosophers, they like to think about things like this, because philosophers, they're in this ground which is, it's kind of in no man's land. They're not in the spiritual domain, because if you say to a shaman or a Buddhist monk or something like this, if you ask them what's the nature of reality, they'll say, well, I mean, that's a silly question. You know, it's a loaded question, isn't it? Because they will say there is no reality, there's only illusion, Maya. And so that's the spiritual perspective, and we can't live in this spiritual perspective, because if our mind is constantly thinking about this spiritual perspective, that it's all illusion, then we won't want to do anything, or we'll find it superfluous to do anything in this illusion, because it's all illusory. What's the point of it? And so we have to come back from being deep within that spiritual realm into the no man's land, which is before the matrix. Because if you're in the matrix and you think entirely matrixial, then you are living in an illusion. And if you know that that's very illusory, and everything around you isn't dependable, and it's all a fabrication and an untruth, then, you know, once you know that, you find it difficult to continue with it, you know, to take it seriously. And so people like me then, philosophers at my level, in my certain arena, I'm in this no man's land, and I am in the matrix. I'm looking at the matrix, and I'm dealing with the matrix every day, but I'm also thinking about the non-reality. And so this is why I say I've got 2 feet in 2 worlds. And you can imagine that that's a difficult arena to be in, where you can't live entirely in either of them. Knowing about these is one thing, but being entirely absorbed in one or the other, that's a different ball game. And so I say to myself, well, okay, knowing what you know, Aaron, what sort of a life do you want to live now? And I look around this matrix and I go, well, I mean, this vibration is too high. Which also is a contradiction, because when you get more spiritually inclined, you're supposed to raise your vibration, aren't you? But and yet the way we interpret things when they're moving fast, we're saying, well, that's a high vibration. And so am I actually a low vibration? When I say I'm calm and my heartbeat is very slow, and I'm very restful, and there's no anxiety, then my vibration must be low. But when people talk about, oh, he's low vibration, this is what Trump said about Jeb Bush, that guy's low vibration. And so again, everything is just a mind-bending paradox. What do we make of it? So, okay, if I consider that this is a high vibration, because that's how I feel it to be a high vibration. And if I feel it to be so, then my vibration must be low, mustn't it? Because if I was of a high vibration also, the same vibrations that's going on outside here, then I wouldn't feel anything different, because I'd be within it, wouldn't I? But I'm not in it. This is why I can feel it. So I'm feeling that high vibration, so therefore I must be low vibration, which is complete contradiction to what the spiritualists will tell you about the ascension and raising your vibration and all this. And so can you see, people, what is going on? What is going on? What can we make of it? We can't make anything of it. All we can do is try to interpret it, and we try to interpret it via our language and via our vibration. You see, I said in one of the other videos that this world is a vibration. Yes, that's the closest I can get to, because language is just, it's a tool to keep you in the matrix, because it's all designed for that, because it pertains to the illusion. And language, when you say, what is the reality of language? What does this word mean? Well, that word just means other words. Well, where's the reality? Well, I mean, there's no reality. There's just a circuit of potential reality. You choose. You choose what you think it means. And that's what it is, isn't it, really? We have to choose what we think it means. And so, at my stage of personal development then, I am in a bit of a conundrum, as I've stated on lots of occasions, because this level of vibration isn't conducive to my level of vibration. So I want to go down to a more tranquil level of vibration, and I can find these tranquil levels of vibration within small towns and coastal resorts which are out of season, because you have you're bathed in the elements. You pay great attention to the elements because there isn't too much there to distract you. If I walk outside here, there's a constant hum and a buzz and a whiz and a beep and a squeak and all these things that's distracting my attention. And I'm looking here and I'm looking there, and all these varying exhibits of the illusion are presenting themselves to my senses. And so my senses become overstimulated. And when you're in a heightened state of stimulation, you're not relaxed, are you? That's why you're in a high vibration instead of a low vibration. So I want to go to a small town, and I want to dwell within that low vibration where I feel the wind on my body, I feel the sun on my body, I feel the water on my body, and I see the ocean, and I see the light on the ocean, and I see all the nature, and all those things. Then when you're in a lower state of vibration, you are more in tune with nature, and it reveals itself to you, and you observe a whole lot more, and you feel a whole lot more. So by way of summary for this video, what am I saying here? I'm saying that to really live your life, I feel it is to live in a lower vibration. Because when you live in a lower vibration, then you appreciate things more. For instance, if you're not rushing, and you sit down to eat a meal, like they do in southern Europe, they take 3 or 4 hours over a meal. When people go to a restaurant, they're hours and hours, you know, just casually eating and chatting and drinking. Whereas Northern European, it's all done very, very quickly, isn't it? Because we're so used into you know, oh, just like get this down the neck and then let's go and achieve this and achieve that and all this sort of thing. And so if you're doing everything fast, then can you imagine that you're not really enjoying it, are you? You know. And so if you slow your vibration down, then you start to enjoy, and you start to see more. Because if your vibration's high and you buzz, you're not paying attention, you're not seeing, and you are not learning. You're completely immersed in the illusion. And I see people driving by with big cars, you know, very expensive cars, and I look at them and I go, they think they've achieved something. What have they achieved? They're still going at the same pace around these streets. They're still using the same roads and same parking areas and the same fuel and all this sort of thing. Only they've paid like £150,000 for their car, and most of the people have paid, you know, £5,000 or something like this. But that's what they want to project onto the world, because they feel as if they've achieved something great, but really what have they achieved? A little bit, you know, higher comfort within that tin can effectively on wheels. And they think that they've achieved a certain prestige, but how many people really project onto them what they are projecting onto the world? They're projecting onto the world that look how successful I am, look how prestigious, you know, my possessions are. But the other person's just going, oh, it's just you know, BMW, or it's just a Rolls Royce. You know, it's not really in my paradigm. I'm not projecting onto that person, oh, that person must be really smart and very clever and very good at what he does, and you know, that isn't reality. That's just the illusion of the other person. And if the other person isn't feeling like that, if the other person just got this expensive car because they can afford to buy it, because they can write it off against their tax, and so therefore they may as well have it, okay, then you may as well have it. And so what are you having things for? You're just having things for the sake of it then, aren't you? So where's the joy and the pleasure in that? And they can say to yourself, well, I'm driving around in a brand new, very nice car, and oh, it seems so marginal to me. At what expense? How many hours extra do you work in the evening time? How much more stress are you under? You know, how much more encumbered are you than the man in the street that you know, doesn't have to stress about this life anything like you do? And I just look and I look and I look and I look, and then I look at the people sitting on the bus. So you got someone sitting on the bus, and they go to work on the bus every day, and they're looking out the window and they see these you know, £150,000 worth of cars driving by. You know, what are they thinking? A myriad of things. I would even suggest that they don't even think anything when they look at these cars, because they don't enter their paradigm really, because they've resigned themselves to the fact that they would never ever achieve one. That is just how somebody else lives their life. That option there is for somebody else. It's not one of my options, so what's the point in me considering it, or fantasising about it, or even giving it any thought whatsoever? There's no point. Just flights of fantasy. I may as well be fantasising about flying through space, because the reality of me flying through space without being in an aeroplane is probably very similar to the probability of me driving one of those cars. You can see what I'm doing here, people. You can see I'm rambling and rambling and rambling. And when you look at me and you think this guy isn't making any sense, or I believe this, or I believe that, or I like what he said here, or like what he said there. Look, it's only words. It's only words coming from my mind. And my mind, on a given daily basis, is just speaking of how I see the world. And there's no right, there's no wrong, even there's no sense in it whatsoever, because all of you viewers, you look at me, and some of you are looking for entertainment, some of you are looking out of curiosity, some of you are looking because you're hoping that I'm going to tell you something that's going to be of use to you. And so everybody has their own idea of what they want from my video. And everybody will take something or nothing. Some people project their complete bullshit onto me, hate and envy and all this sort of thing, with just this sharp, the comments are sharp and abrasive and abusive, and I just delete them. And I just think you sad, unevolved automata, basically. You can't really call them a fully fledged human being. And then I get other people, of course, which say, I know exactly what you mean. And it's kind of soothing for them. And then other people say that, I'm feeling you, man. Yeah, I'm finding it very interesting. I've only just started on my journey, and this, that, and the other. So we're all getting different things out of it. So if you're getting something out of it, then what I'm doing here is of value. I mean, it has to be of value from my perspective. Otherwise, I wouldn't be doing it. You see, I have to be getting something from it. It's like when I'm speaking about a tree, I'm saying, look, people, these trees, they don't go through all this effort of years and years and years of developing for nothing, just for the sake of it. They don't do it for the sake of it. They do it because they're thriving, living, conscious entities, and they enjoy life. And so, in my own way, I'm making of this life what I will and what I can. And I have to say that I am enjoying it, because I found myself now in a very low vibration, which is very, very conducive to health and happiness and longevity. This is something from the Matrix which they consider that they have proved. If you don't have a lot of stress in your life and you're calm, then the chances are you'll live longer and you'll be happier. So I'm here and I'm looking around and I'm bewildered by it all, and I realise that whatever I think I know, I don't know anything, and I realise how interchangeable I am, and I realise that I'm looking at this world from so many different perspectives, and it can be very, very confusing for you people out there, but ultimately I'm just playing with words. That's all we can do, isn't it? You see, if I don't play with words, then I don't have any interaction with humanity, really. At least 99% of it would be taken away. And so I'm here in this dimension, and so I accept my role in the play. If, like some people, the proverbial Buddha sitting under a tree, they don't want to accept a role in this arena, they just consider that it is an illusion, it's superfluous, and there's nothing in it that they want, and so then they choose that. But my soul doesn't want to choose that. My soul chooses to be where I am, in no man's land. Only I put my toe in this side and I put my toe in that side, and this is all I'm doing, and this is why people find me difficult to understand. They look at me and they can't fathom my mind. I hope this has made something more clear, because if I've articulated myself as well as I hoped I would, then I hope that I'm painting the picture so you know where I am. And maybe there's some of you who are in this no man's land, and you can feel my vibration. There's some of you that are just teetering on the outside of the matrix, dipping their toe into this no man's land before they pass through the no man's land to go into the spiritual land, because there is this divide. You don't just go from one to the other. This is the whole thing about waking up. When you wake up, you step outside of the matrix partially, or you have 1 foot outside of it. You got 1 foot in it and you got 1 foot outside of it, and you go, what the fuck's this? What is this? What is this? And the ego has a panic attack. But when you gradually immerse yourself into the no man's land, then you find yourself in kind of like the abyss. It's the abyss of non-comprehension. Nothing computes. And then when you go through momentarily into the pure spiritual world, when you have, you know, some profound psychedelic experience or meditation experience, or you lower your vibration down to that which is conducive with nature, and then you are in an arena whereby you just immerse yourself like in very, very ambient temperature water. The body is 37 degrees Celsius, and so if you immerse yourself in 37 degrees Celsius of water, then you can't feel any difference, because your senses, there's nothing to detect, you see. It's only when you go warmer or you go colder that your senses detect something. And so what I'm saying is when I'm in nature, I don't detect anything that is different. It's like I'm in 37 degrees of water. I've immersed myself within myself, and I feel very, very comfortable and content there. And so in my mind, I'm just picturing just sleeping in the forest, just walking in the forest, just meditating in the forest, just observing in the forest, just observing within myself, being within myself. That's what it's like. I hope this makes sense. Bye for now.